Yo, welcome to today's video. I couldn't be more excited because baby, we are talking about the Porsche GT3 RS, my dream car, baby. I got a GT3 right back there on my screensaver, as you can see. I love this car, man. So to be making a video on why the GT3 RS is probably the most extreme and powerful 911 ever created, I can't wait. So today we're gonna break it down, the technology that is involved with this car and why Porsche did such a great job once again. So let's get right into it. Let's waste no time. Let's go. So Porsche obviously doesn't want to get rid of its 4.0 liter naturally aspirated flat six yet. It is a powerful engine, and they shouldn't, because it is one of the finest automotive engines ever produced. So there's only so much power that can actually be extracted from it while still meeting increasingly tough emission standards. So the question is, how do you make a car like the 911 GT3 RS faster than its predecessor, even though it makes the same power? Well, you focus on grip. You see, this new 992 GT3 RS has arguably the most extreme aero package alongside the McLaren Senna when it comes to road cars. But guys, sad news, it does come at an expense. It's heartbreaking that they had to do this to unlock this power. They had to get rid of the front trunk. So if you're going to the grocery store, I mean, bro, you're out of luck. They actually replaced it with a radiator that's canted forward, similar to what you see in modern 911 race cars. So in an interview with Andreas, I don't want to butcher his last name, Pruninger, I don't know. He says the monocooler concept is the enabler. It's easy to produce downforce on the rear because you just put a big wing on it, but you have to bring the car back to balance. So for the 911, it's always been very difficult to get the downforce at the front. So what they needed was aero modules with electromechanically operated flaps where the side radiators normally sit. So they had to go. These movable flaps look like small wings, though Andreas describes the whole package as more of a front diffuser using a wing to modify the diffuser shape. These wings can be adjusted by specially developed brushless electric motors, which can rotate a maximum of 80 degrees in 0.3 seconds. This means that the angle of attack is infinitely adjustable. So this is working all in concert with a new biplane rear wing that also has a hydraulic adjustable top section. So for my F1 fans, you're gonna be super excited about this. They have introduced DRS to this Porsche. This is an F1 inspired drag reduction system. It's activated by a button on the steering wheel that automatically puts the car in its lowest downforce configuration. So Andreas says the effect is very noticeable at high speeds, but you won't need to hit the button on the track because the car will actually automatically adjust the downforce level as needed. All right, so we got this whole front diffuser setup Porsche has designed, but still, it wasn't quite enough to achieve the ideal aero balance of 70% in the rear and 30% in the front. So instead of resorting to things like dive planes, which add drag and increase frontal area, Porsche opted to develop a new hydrofoil-shaped components for the front suspension. In turn, Andreas says this contributed to an 88-pound increase in downforce. So you can see, for them to create a powerful GT3, they had to do everything with the aerodynamics on this car. Even if we take a look at the vents in the hood, these are specially designed to get the hot air from the radiators as far away from the car as possible. Andreas actually says you'll be able to drive with the windows down in the winter because of all the hot air rushing by the car. All right, so that's cool and all. You know, you have all this hot air rushing by, but what about the wheel wells? Because all that air is going to get sucked up into there. Well, helping vent pressure from the wheel wells are new upright vanes behind the tire that create an air channel. Now, the channel behind the front wheels required a new door, which is made from carbon fiber reinforced plastic, also known as CFRP, which not only saves weight, but it is far more cheaper than making a new door from metal. Of course, Andreas loved this because it is an excuse to bring back the fixed door handles of the 991, which he actually prefers over the 992's retractable units. He just likes it better because it's old school, and you know, these old things were used for a reason because they're good and they work. All right, let's make our way to the roof of the car, which again is also made from CFRP. You'll actually notice there are two fins that help keep the hot air rushing down the side of the body away from the intake on the engine cover. And because of this, the result is an increase of 20 horsepower in testing. How amazing is that? Now, the last two iterations of the GT3 RS also used intakes ahead of the rear wheels to feed the engine, though now this is just a vent to reduce drag. All right, so we got all these adjustments to the body. What is actually happening with the downforce? At 124 miles per hour, the RS is actually capable of generating around 900 pounds of downforce. And at 177 miles per hour, the speed achieved on the Nürburgring's back straight, that number jumps to an astonishing 1,895 pounds. Let me put that into context for you guys. The new GT3 RS is capable of making twice as much downforce as its predecessor and 3 times as much as the current GT3. Now, this Porsche is obviously hanging out with the great aero monsters like the Dodge Viper ACR, which makes over 1,700 pounds of downforce at 177 miles per hour, and the McLaren Senna, which makes 1,775 at 155 miles per hour. Porsche says these figures put the new GT3 RS on par with a GT3 race car. Bro, you're telling me I can buy a street car and it's putting numbers that a race car would do? Absolutely insane. So its ability to cut drag should make it even faster flat out. So with all this downforce and grip going on, we got all these aerodynamics. The question is, can the suspension even handle all this? Well, with its previous setup, it can't actually. You see, they have to take a very different approach to the suspension. You don't want too much pitch with the car. And for those that don't know what pitch is, it's a shift in your vehicle's weight forward or backwards. So when this happens, the weight is moving from one end of the vehicle to the other. So from the back to the front or from the front to the back. And you also don't want too much dive in a car making high downforce because that can change the center of pressure dramatically, which is going to cause instability to the car. So to fix all this, they had to add more anti-dive geometry in the front suspension so that the car only pitches 5 millimeters forward under max braking from top speed compared to 12 millimeters with the GT3. All right, so I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, okay, you've created a stable aero platform. I'm sure that's what you're saying. That's exactly the words you're using. And we're obviously dealing with such immense downforce that the suspension in the car must feel very, very stiff. You'd actually be surprised. The spring rates are up 50% at the front and 60% at the back. So it's actually still surprisingly still livable. Andreas even says, you wouldn't believe how good the car feels on the road, which he confesses it's totally a byproduct because it was not his intention to build the car that way. Now, this is also a big thanks to the bigger tires on the car, which are the biggest ever to fit a 911. The RS uses 335/30R21 rear tires and 275/35R20s at the front. So while you have a wider contact patch, you also bring a slight increase in sidewall height. So we know with the last few generations of the GT3 RS, the 992 uses adaptive dampers, but the adjustments are unlike anything ever seen in a road car. Andreas actually admits that he was jealous of competitors' cars that had dampers with user adjustable compression and rebound settings, and he wanted the same thing for the RS. But he would see people that had cars coming in, they're lying in grease, they're fumbling around, they're having to come back after 2 laps, frustrated, needing to jack up the car to get underneath to make adjustments. So obviously he would want to make it more convenient for the user. So he made it more accessible in real time. So when you actually press the Porsche Active Suspension Management, also known as PASM button on the steering wheel, you can then use the 4 knobs to adjust rebound and compression settings for the front and rear separately. Now, do keep in mind, Porsche will not provide any default damper settings due to each driver and each road surface being completely different and each having different requirements. But honestly, at the end of the day, there's not so much adjustment that you can do to it that would make the car undrivable. When you take a look at these 4 knobs, they actually allow for an adjustment for differential settings and controls for a new 7-stage traction control system, in addition to the expected drive mode selector. Andreas actually says that it takes him around half an hour to come up with his ideal settings on a new track and encourages drivers to play around to figure out what they want. So what he's pretty much saying is it's not some super complicated science. You just have to give yourself the time to feel it out and you'll be able to dial it in. Again, it's not going to make the car undrivable. You just got to, take some time with it. I think we can all agree that Porsche made the most of the focus on the chassis and aerodynamics of this car. Obviously, they couldn't leave the engine alone. They had to ensure that the RS had a bit more power than the GT3 and was even with its predecessor. So despite tougher emission standards, once again, they're still trying to give it a swing to see what they can pull out of this engine. The familiar 4.0 liter gets new cylinder heads, new throttle bodies, one for each cylinder, a new intake, and new cams with a longer duration. So this is all leading to 518 horsepower. That's just 2 fewer than the 991.2 GT3 RS. Now do keep in mind, the engine should feel different as going from 6,000 to 9,000 RPM redline. It's even more aggressive. So you can really feel the power now when you're getting up to that red line. They also did some tweaks to the lubrication system for the 7-speed dual clutch gearbox, and they did a shorter final drive compared to the GT3. But they are already at the maximum achievable shift speed, so there wasn't much to change in that department. So we don't have some track times at the Nürburgring for you guys because they actually haven't been out there yet. The ring requires an automaker like Porsche to book the entire track for an attempt. So, you know, Andreas, that doesn't faze him. He says he doesn't mind, and that the cooler weather in a couple months just means the engine will breathe even better. So right now it's anyone's guess about what sort of time it will actually do. But do note that the GT3 ran a 6-minute 55.2 second, and the old GT3 RS did a 6-minute 56.4 around the 12.8 mile Sport Auto configuration. We do have to throw a side note in there. Do keep in mind the official Nürburgring timing method includes the entire T13 straight, which adds a few seconds to the lap. But because this timing method was actually implemented recently, it's hard to draw a comparison to older lap times. We can expect the new RS to dip into the 640s easily. All right, so I gotta know, what do you guys think of the new GT3 RS? I know it's a beautiful car, man, but let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? It's impressive that they've actually managed to make a faster car with the same horsepower as the previous version. Like, imagine the amount of creativity it takes to do that. So if you guys could please drop a like and subscribe, I can bring you more car videos every single week. I would appreciate it. So that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.